Nightclub bouncers. Have you ever had to forcefully kick out another bouncer? My first night working security at a nightclub, the head bouncer, Blake, shoved me aside and said, "Listen, Mr. Miyagi, I'm sure you know karate or whatever, but this is my door and these are my girls. Stay out of my way before I karate kick your back to Hiroshima or wherever you crawled out from." I only stayed at that nightclub because I had a baby on the way and needed a second job, but working with Blake actually made me lose a couple brain cells. Blake was this massive white guy who looked like he'd been working the door for 5 years. He had these crazy arms that looked like he whacked off with both hands and loved telling stories about the fights he'd won. The other bouncers worshipped him like they were his henchmen. They laughed at all his jokes, especially the ones about me eating teriyaki dog lip or being good at math. I told myself I only came here to get paid, so I check IDs at the door, watch for troublemakers inside, and make sure nobody gets too drunk. Basic security stuff I'd trained for at 3 different clubs before this one back when I was in college. But Blake kept testing me by making me clean up vomit while he flirted with girls at the VIP section. After a few weeks, I noticed there was something fishy with Blake. Whenever a group of Asian girls showed up, he'd personally pat them down at the door. His hands would linger way too long on their bodies while he made jokes about checking for hidden weapons. The girls would look uncomfortable, but most were too polite or drunk to say anything. One night, a group of Japanese exchange students came to celebrate someone's birthday. They were already tipsy from dinner and giggling in line. Blake's eyes lit up when he saw them like he was Bill Cosby. He waved them over for his special security check while the other bouncers smirked. I watched him run his hands all over one girl who could barely stand straight. "These Asian girls think they're so smart," Blake said to another bouncer loud enough for everyone to hear. "Someone should show them they're dumb for a change, especially when they're wasted like this." He squeezed the girl's waist and she tried to pull away, but he held her steady, claiming he needed to finish the search. I stepped forward and told him they were all clear to go inside. Blake turned to me with this nasty smile and said I needed to mind my own business, that he'd been doing security since before I could use chopsticks. The other bouncers laughed while the Japanese girls hurried inside looking scared and confused. The pattern continued for weeks. Blake would target Asian girls, especially the drunk ones. He'd corner them in the hallway to the bathroom, put his arm around them at the bar, follow them to the parking lot to make sure they got to their cars safe. He started acting like Childish Gambino. It was obvious this guy had a fetish. Everything went crazy on a Saturday night. This young Korean girl who looked like she just turned 21 was celebrating passing her nursing exam. Yeah, typical whatever. She'd had way too much to drink and was stumbling toward the exit. Blake immediately moved to intercept her, saying he'd help her get a cab, which would be the right thing to do. But since it was Blake, I knew exactly what that meant. I followed them outside where Blake had his arm wrapped around her waist. She was trying to push him away but could barely stay upright. He kept pulling her toward the alley beside the club, saying his car was parked there and he'd drive her home. She mumbled something about waiting for her friends, but Blake said they'd already left. That's when I stepped between them and told the girl I'd already called her an Uber. Blake's face went red and he shoved me hard in the chest. He told me to stop meat blocking him and told me to get back inside. The girl stumbled toward the street while Blake focused all his rage on me. 7 months of his racist comments and watching him assault drunk girls had led to this moment. "You think you're some kind of hero? Little Jackie Chan?" Blake screamed, getting in my face. His hot breath smelled like wet pigs. "These anime girls come here dressed like that and you want to protect them? You people stick together like chopsticks, huh?" He shoved me again harder this time and I almost fell backward. I stayed calm and told him he needed to leave, that he was done working here. Blake laughed and said I was nobody to him, that I was just a diversity hire who'd be gone in a week. Then he swung at me with a massive right hook that would have knocked out most people. But I'd trained for this. I know all the moves. I ducked under his punch and drove my shoulder into his stomach, which made him short of breath for a bit. He tried to grab me in a bear hug, but I slipped out and clocked his ankles. He hit the pavement hard but got up swinging wildly. I dodged another punch and hit him in the nose to discombobulate him. He started squirting everywhere. Then this smart guy charged at me like a raging bull. I sidestepped and used his momentum to throw him into the brick wall. He bounced off like a rag doll. I could have stopped there, but years of his torture came flooding back. I grabbed his shirt and drove my knee into his ribs. I think I felt something crack too. He dropped to his knees, wheezing. The other bouncers came running out but stopped when they saw Blake bleeding on the ground. I stood over him, breathing hard with my fists still clenched. "He's done. If I see him near another drunk girl, I'm calling the cops with everything I've documented." Blake tried to speak but only coughed up blood. Management fired Blake that night after reviewing the security footage. Turns out I wasn't the first person to complain about him, but I was the first to do something about it. I really do wish I did something sooner about all this. But at the very least, that's one other colonizing white boy down.